From becoming an unstoppable monster and taking over entire games to making a historic run to bring a ring to his city, these are the greatest playoff performances by the King. Having more playoff games under his belt than anyone else in history, LeBron has been balling out in the postseason for over 15 years. His highlight reels alone have as many minutes as some stars' entire careers in the playoffs. And his stat lines just make you shake your head and wonder how he's had the longevity to keep lacing up and continue to ball out at the age of 38 years old. Even though the East was weak in his early years, he used raw willpower to muscle some terrible rosters into deep playoff runs. James's talent, basketball IQ, and pure athleticism has made him a 4-time champion in 10 finals appearances, and nobody comes close when it comes to being a better floor general in the postseason. So get you a good drink and some tacos. You're going to want to watch this one start to finish, because we're going to go over how LeBron was an absolute hype monster and lived up to it, how he almost single-handedly pushed an incredibly weak Cavs team to the finals, his absolute beast mode performance against the Celtics, how he got a chip for his city against all odds, and why you should never poke the bear. There's a very good reason why there's an intense debate about whether or not James isn't just the king, but also the GOAT. James's accolades in the playoffs alone are otherworldly. Although more than impressive by themselves, it's how he got them that makes it all the more special. LeBron had some notoriously bad Cavs teams he was working with in the early years, like the 2007 Cavaliers, whose second option was a 32-year-old Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Now, that Cavs team wasn't completely terrible despite LeBron's complete carry job, but there may be one or two players in the entirety of life on Earth that could have gotten that Cavs team to the finals, and one of those players is LeBron James. When it comes to being the only person to do something, James and the 2016 Cavs, upon his second year returning, are the only team to ever come back from a 3-1 deficit to win a championship. And in LeBron fashion, that series was won against the unanimous MVP in Steph Curry and the 73-9 Warriors. In 2017 and 2018, LeBron could have very well won 2 more rings, if not for arguably the second best player in the league in Kevin Durant joining an already stacked juggernaut in Golden State. Then we have the bubble playoffs in 2020, which were jarring in their own right, but James still came out blazing against the Heat to give him his 4th ring with Anthony Davis and the Lakers. Facing Memphis in the first round of 2023, LeBron felt he was slighted by Dillon Brooks, and he decided he had to put his subjects in their place. So he went out and put up insane stat lines against the Grizzlies and placed them on a direct flight to Cancun just a few games later. Before LeBron got all these amazing playoff moments though, he was born in 1984 and has had critical acclaim ever since he was a student at St. Vincent St. Mary High School. As he calls it, he's just a kid from Akron, which is a city located not too far from the outskirts of the Cleveland metropolitan area. His games were so popular, they were broadcasted on local television across the northeastern Ohio region, and he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated titled The Chosen One. The King's hype was so insane, he was pumped up as the heir to Air Jordan, and he did himself no favors by wearing the number 23. Luckily for the Cavs, they tanked hard enough to land the number 1 spot in the draft and had their own draft rights, so of course they chose LeBron in 2003. With his averages of 20.9 points, 5.9 assists, and 5.5 rebounds, he was easily crowned Rookie of the Year in 2003 to 2004. Where he really took off, though, was as early as his second year of professional ball, because his basketball IQ, combined with his freakish athleticism, allowed him to get insanely close to his absurd career averages at 27.2 points, 7.2 assists, and 7.4 rebounds. LeBron was so good in just his second year of playing in the NBA that he was arguably already a top 5 player in the entire league. Then, as early as the 2006 season, the Cavs were already in the playoffs after being a lottery team for nearly 7 years before LeBron arrived. They only made it to the second round, but the King was determined to get a seat in the finals. Then we get to the real meat and potatoes, the 2007 season where LeBron performed one of his most famous carry jobs of all time. When the Cavs were meeting up with the Warriors year after year in the late 2010s, the East was considered pretty weak. But during the era of 2007, the East was even weaker than that. LeBron's 50-win Cavs weren't exactly slouches, but they could never win 50 games in today's NBA, and they probably wouldn't make it very far in the postseason either. Regardless, if you got to watch those games live, you could feel how every play went through James, both on offense and on defense. This was stupidly obvious in Game 5 against the Pistons in the East semifinals, when James scored every single point in overtime. But he wasn't done there, because he also scored every single point in double overtime, including the game winner. When they finished off the Pistons in 6, they had to go up against a championship-caliber team in San Antonio. And it turns out James couldn't take his carry job any further against the Tim Duncan and Tony Parker-led Spurs. In every game, LeBron was out there doing it all. But in the fourth quarter, you could see the gas running out quickly, even when he would go for a layup after electric spin moves. In the end, James and the Cavs ended up getting swept. But just getting there was a miracle brought down to us by the King in the first place. LeBron continued to make it to the playoffs with the Cavs over the next few years. But he didn't go to the finals again until he left Cleveland and teamed up with Wade and Bosh in Miami. Although he had a less than stellar performance in the finals against the Mavs in 2011, he found his stride in 2012 when we got to see him go full-on beast mode against Boston in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Facing elimination with the Heat being down 3-2, he decided to completely take over the game, scoring an incredible 45 points and grabbing 16 boards. The face says it all. He was done being eliminated, and he was going to go all the way. Upon the King making up his mind that it was finally his time to sit on the throne, he would go on to eliminate the Celtics in 7, and then the Thunder in the finals to secure his first chip. Against Oklahoma City, he would average 28.6 points, 7.4 dimes, and 10.2 rebounds, and cement himself as a champion. The next time he would go to the finals was in 2013 with Miami, and James would get to the finals against the Spurs by eliminating the Pacers 4-3 in the East. With another monster stat line of 25.3 points, 7 assists, and 10.9 rebounds, LeBron would lead the Heat to get his second ring against Kawhi's Spurs, squeaking by with another 4-3 series victory. When the King returned to Cleveland in the 2014 and 2015 season, he teamed up with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, and it is totally possible they could have won the finals series against Golden State. That is, if Kevin Love wasn't injured by Kelly Olynyk in the previous series against the Celtics, and Kyrie didn't go down in the finals in Game 1 against the Warriors in overtime. But LeBron still led Cleveland to 6 games against the Warriors with his next 2 best players on the sidelines, and the Warriors were already considered one of the best teams in history. History repeated itself in 2016, but this time Curry was the unanimous MVP, and Golden State was starting to mesh even better than in 2015. Golden State would go 73-9 in the regular season and were clear favorites to win the title. This time, though, LeBron got the help he needed from Kyrie and Lil Kev. Despite going down 3-1, LeBron and Kyrie would completely take over and refuse to go down. In Games 5 and 6 in elimination, LeBron was quite literally unstoppable, racking up 41 points in each game. And in Game 7, he not only had lockdown defense, but a triple-double with 27 points and 11 dimes and boards. At 31 years old, LeBron would average a double-double in the series with 29.7 points, 8.9 assists, and 11.3 rebounds. This championship is still considered one of the toughest fought and historic rings in history. And just as iconic is his victory cry in an interview after the buzzer, "Cleveland, this is for you!" In the last 2 years of playing with the Cavs, LeBron continued to play out of his mind in the postseason. But he had one more major thorn in his side. Kevin Durant joined Golden State, and with that move, he made an already historic team a juggernaut. Despite that, James had otherworldly performances at 33 and 34 years old. But the King is not a god, and he couldn't overcome the Warriors with almost as many All-Stars as they had starters. After his tenure in Cleveland, he took his talents to Los Angeles in 2018. After groin injuries in his first year in LA, he picked up the pace the next season, only for the league to cancel it due to COVID-19. When they rebooted the season for the playoffs, the King once again rose to the occasion with Anthony Davis, and they were able to squeeze out a chip against the Jimmy Butler-led Miami Heat in 6. Some may call it a bubble or Mickey Mouse ring, but there really should be no excuses for anyone else in the league when LeBron was already 36 years old. Not only that, but LeBron's stat line at that age was indicative that he still had it, with nearly 30 points, 8.5 assists, and 11.8 rebounds for the 4-2 series against the Heat to gain his 4th ring. After the Lakers made it through the play-in in 2023 against the Wolves, they went on to face the Grizz in the first round. James is no young cub at the age of 38 years old, and the King has no problem putting his subjects on the block. So when Dylan Brooks said he pokes bears and doesn't respect anyone till they give him 40, LeBron gave him what he asked for. But he did it on his own terms, putting up 22 points and 20 rebounds, dismantling the Grizz and Dillon's attitude completely. The Lakers would go on to win the series in 6 games, and Brooks was so ashamed that he refused to talk to the press afterwards. But his embarrassment doesn't end there, because he ended up being fined $25,000 for refusing post-game conferences. If you take a shot at the King, you better not miss. LeBron James has always been a staple to the playoffs since shortly after he entered the league. His postseason acumen is nearly unmatched, and he has more highlights in the playoffs than some have minutes in their entire postseason careers. James never fails to impress with his incredible basketball IQ and unparalleled ability to shape his game. He already has more points than anyone else ever, and even has over 10,000 assists and 10,000 rebounds. It doesn't matter if he's taking over and getting a full head of steam and yamming it, or being a field commander and directing his team toward a W. LeBron will go down in history as one of the best players of all time, and if he can delay Father Time a few more years and get another ring or two, he could just be the undisputed GOAT.